Hey there, Regina Anley here, and it is time for Tips and Tricks Tuesday. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever received an email or looked at a post or been on a webinar or even in a meeting with somebody and they said some kind of weird line that was this vague reference to something that you had no idea what they were talking about? You know, Bueller, Bueller. Let me ask you this. How often do you just automatically use some kind of a movie line or some kind of catchphrase that in your content, in your webinars, in your trainings, whatever you're doing? How many times do you just automatically come out with something like, hey, I'm walking here, or some other vague reference? Here's the thing. Vague references can add a huge chuckle and add some humor into your content. But, big but, only if your audience actually knows the reference. So I said, Bueller, Bueller. If you know where that came from, put it in the comments. If you're catching this live or on replay, put it in the comments below. Here's the thing. That line came from a movie that was made in 1986. Now, 1986 was, I think, 38 years ago. And if your audience is, 25 to 35 or even, 30 to 45, maybe they never actually saw that movie. It's Ferris Bueller's Day Off, by the way. So you can look it up and you'll see it on YouTube and you can look up all these vague references. Here's the thing though. When you use a vague reference that people in your audience don't know, you can sometimes have a really bad effect because people feel kind of stupid that they don't know what you're referring to. Because here you are all excited because you're using this cool reference and you know exactly where it came from. And maybe you're on a Zoom or something like that with a bunch of other people and a few people chuckle. And then there's other people going, what are they talking about? It's a way to actually drive your audience away. So when it comes to these references, let's see, I actually brought up a movie reference site for one-liners that some of them I hear all the time. Have you ever heard somebody say, well, nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition? Any idea where that one came from? That actually came from Monty Python. We're talking 1960s. A lot of people this day and age, unless you're in my age range, and I'm over 60. So if you're looking at a certain age range in a generation, if that generation knows the reference, that's great. If you say, well, nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition, which is a great response to, well, I didn't expect that. Yeah, well, no one expects the Spanish Inquisition. That's kind of how that's used in a sentence. And so if somebody ever said that to you, you'd be like, Spanish Inquisition? What does that have to do with anything? If you don't know the reference. And again, it makes you kind of feel bad. You're like, am I supposed to know this? So be very careful, know your audience. And so there's a lot of ones out here that people use on a regular basis. Have you ever been on a business call with somebody and you're talking about growing and scaling your business? And somebody says, well, you know what? You're going to need a bigger boat. Jaws, 1975. If your audience is that younger crowd and they've never seen Jaws, they have no idea. They're just going, oh yeah, bigger boat. Yep, we just need a bigger thing here. They have no idea what the reference is. So when it comes to speaking to your folks out here, make sure that you really, really know your target audience. Now, I use a lot of phrases in mind because my target audience is 45 to 65. That's my actual target audience. Do I work with people outside of that range? Absolutely. My main target audience, though, is 45 to 65 and predominantly women. So when I write my content, when I write my emails, when I do my webinars, when I'm doing my live masterclasses, I might throw in some vague references. A lot of times I use the Bueller. Anybody paying attention? Bueller. And I know that the majority of my audience is going to get it. And that's okay because that's my target audience. They know what I'm talking about. So, I mean, you throw something out here, nobody puts baby in a corner. That comes up in a business conversation or in a master class when you're talking about being backed into a corner, and then somebody automatically says, "Yeah, I feel like I'm being backed into a corner." Hey, nobody puts baby in a corner. And they're like, "What?" Well, you know what? If you haven't seen Dirty Dancing, which came out in 1987, think about that age range. Who are you speaking to? Who are you working with? Make sure that you're using references that people understand. Now, some of them are ones that everybody understands. It doesn't matter who you are, how old you are. For the most part, if somebody is having challenges at their business and they're talking to somebody and they say, "Hey, Houston, we have a problem." They know where that came from, regardless of their age, right? So when you think about those references, there's tons of them. There's tons of them that are out. Here's looking at you, kid. You're doing a great job. Here's looking at you, kid. Somebody says that to you, and you're like, "Who are you calling a kid?" Because you don't know where the reference comes from. That's Casablanca in 1942. I mean, come on. Some of the audience that you're talking to is not going to understand that at all. And they're going to look at you funny, going, "What is she talking about? I don't understand this." So, the point of this, the vague references, and it could be vague references on anything. It could be, trends. It could, if you're talking about the mood ring or the pet rock, we use those as examples. A lot of us business consultants use those as examples of people who made millions and millions of dollars out of these like crazy, weird ideas like a mood ring or a pet rock, right? Putting a rock in a box, calling it a pet rock and selling them. The guy made millions. Here's the thing. They're great, they're funny, and especially if you know the references. And if you want to use them in your audience, and your audience may not necessarily know what you're talking about, just tell them. So say, it's like, "Hey, let's get a new one here. Well, it's just a flesh wound. That's another Monty Python one. Yeah. Leave the gun, take the cannoli. These are all movie references that people throw in. Hasta la vista, baby. Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, this generation that's out now and the generation before that knows Arnold Schwarzenegger as, I think, what is he, a governor out in California someplace? They don't know him as well as the movie actor. Life is like a box of chocolates. When you're talking about people having problems in their business and struggles, and it's go, "Yeah, well, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get." That came from Forrest Gump. So people who know these movies, you just tell them where it came from. Make sure you understand who your audience is, who you're speaking to. And the big point that I want to get across today in the tips is don't make people feel like they're stupid. That's what happens when you use these references and maybe you're on a Zoom and half the audience gets it, half the audience doesn't get it. The half that doesn't get it could be sitting there going, "What did I miss? Am I supposed to know what she's talking about? Why is everybody laughing? Are they laughing just to laugh? I don't get this." It kind of makes you psychologically feel like you don't know something you're supposed to know. That turns your audience away. So if you're going to use a reference, just make sure you point out where it came from. If you're going to talk about the pet rock, talk about what the pet rock is, where it came from, and why it's important within the content and the conversation that you're having. That will keep people more interested, and oftentimes it will send them out to go look up the information. So, these Monty Python references, there's a lot of people in the generations, maybe the last 3 generations, who have no idea what and who Monty Python and Monty Python Flying Circus is. I know it. I'm old enough to know it. I used to watch it all the time. It's actually past my age as well, being where I am, and I know the reference to it. That's great. But if I say, "Oh, well, we didn't expect this." Yeah, well, no one expects the Spanish Inquisition. I know where that came from. I'm going to chuckle. I'm going to think that's hilarious. Other people are going to go, "What? What's she talking about?" Then again, if you say, "That comes from Monty Python, go look it up on YouTube," you will laugh. You will love it. So just make sure any references that you have, whether it's a movie quote, whether it's a product, it's a trend, something that came from maybe back in the day that you don't know about. Maybe you're a younger coach or consultant and you're talking about something that's current trends and you're talking to an audience that's older. You're talking to 50 and above who doesn't necessarily know all the current stuff that's trending, all the current music that's trending and all that stuff. So when somebody first said Swifty to me, they were referring to Taylor Swift. I did not know that. I used to go to the dog track with some friends when I was younger here in Massachusetts, where I used to live. And at the dog track, the little rabbit that goes out, they say, "There goes Swifty." When you say Swifty to me, that's what I think of. I don't think of Taylor Swift. So remember, whatever the reference is, just make sure people understand where the reference is coming from to make sure you keep them engaged in whatever it is that you're doing. So that's what I want to speak about today. If you have any comments or questions about how to use those references, just comment below. I'd be happy to have a conversation with you and help you format your content so that people actually get what you mean and find it. Because adding humor, honestly, adding humor to your content can raise the engagement way high up because, we all like some humor. We want to laugh. We want to have a good time. We want to have things positive. When you throw in some of these quotes and some of these references, they're fun, but only if you know where they came from. So if you have any questions about it, just comment below and I'd be happy to have a chat with you and help you with your content. So that's what I got for this week, and we will see you next week on Tips and Tricks Tuesday. Bye for now.